Okay, we're going to talk about the movie called Oblivion. It's a movie that's out now, and it's with Tom Cruise in it. Um, Many people ask you about your interpretation of movies, and this movie ends in a way that people go away and they take from it, from the movie, that the bad guys lose and the good guys win. What is your take on this?
Yeah, well, several people approached me indeed with that feeling, asking like, oh, why would if indeed you would have the people that would be controlling things, and also Hollywood and the movies, why would they put in the movie that the good guys win and the bad guys lose? So that's like people walk away from that with that feeling, and several people approach me with that and like asking to explain that. So I think makes sense to explain that here, and also use the movie as a backdrop on which to explain the what always call the two timelines, and which really is what people refer to as a rapture of sorts. But so yes, the idea would be that um, the movie would be a post-apocalyptic scenario, what they would call like a post-Great Tribulation scenario, where what you're really seeing, what they're not giving you, is that they are there's another timeline in the whole thing. What they're giving you is the group of people that stay over on a virtually uninhabitable world, Earth, and then you have the other group that has been taken off planet, or I would put raptured up to a moon on Saturn that's called Titan. And then what you have over here is like a set of drones and a mainframe controlling these drones, and the super soldier slash um, clones that are like in charge of these drones to keep them working. And so and then you have this group of Earthlings that have stayed back, that haven't been taken off planet, that are like fighting these drones. But so what they're not telling you is that so the first thing, the implicit part of it is, one, the whole population of Earth has been has been uploaded to has been taken off planet to Titan, and then you have this group has staying back. And so basically what they're telling you is that, so then this little group is then indeed fighting with a mainframe called TET, but which would just be like a forward operating location thingy for Titan, to make sure that they finish sucking the Earth dry of all its resources. So it's really not relevant what that this group of people would have eventually destroyed the mainframe that is like above the Earth, which is this dark pyramid. And what is being shown is that the operation has been successful to take people off planet to Titan. You see, and then the real what they're showing. So it's really a scenario that is very much in favor of what I call the false timeline, which would be the movement to rapture people off planet to a what I and what we're what's important is, I think, to point out that Titan is the way in mythology is referred to the fallen angels. So where these people have been taken to this Titan moon, um, would not be some planet really. It would be really a kind of an abduction, rapture to a lower frequency. and then you have a few people that stay back, which would have to remain on Earth and do the whole thing all over again, which would take hundreds of thousands of years because everything has been radiated, and all you have is radiation zones and destruction. And then there's even this little fastball where they show like a little piece of a little piece of beautiful nature where Tom Cruise goes to like spend some time, and they're like referring to that as paradise, which is yet more deceptive, because the paradise, which would belong to the right timeline, which is totally not shown in this movie, that would not be on that radiated, destroyed planet that has been made barren. That would be the real paradise, would be the real timeline, where the other group goes to, which is going upward spiral, and goes and is raptured to another level.
Yeah, so basically, what you're saying is they try to do as if there are two timelines, and that is the bad guys, which is the Tet, is fighting these rebels, people that have so-called survived the apocalypse, and they live on this barren earth. And which is actually what you're saying is this whole scenario is part of one timeline where it has all been decided already, and that is that everybody has been abducted or moved over to another planet, another moon of Earth, and that there are just a few people left over to start all over again. Which is what this is a timeline that they think they do as if they're presenting you with a choice, while the choice has been made. The decision has been made already to go in a certain direction, and they're just trying to convince everybody to go in that same trend of thought, which is apocalypto.
No, exactly. That's the whole thing. That like I told this gentleman that approached me with this, he said he walked away confused, because he was like thinking, why would the group that is, which has become obvious now, is creating a kind of a staged chaos in order to erect a kind of a global order, a uniform order, meaning a kind of a fake security piece, but which is not real. It's not what I call the real unos mundos. It's not a real unity and diversity. It's really a uniformity system where everybody has to obey one global.
One government, one money, one religion.
Right. So, but this group then, so people would go like, yeah, okay, if there's such a group, why would they make a movie in which they let the good guys beat them? And that's the whole thing. It's absolutely not like that. What they're presenting is indeed the timeline that they are on, which is a timeline that is going towards a kind of apocalyptic event. And then, in order to get like people to, if you wish, subscribe to this this movement towards a kind of a alien technology singularity kind of thing. And if you see the movie, if you see the video that just came out, Cyrus, this documentary on aliens, where they're saying that the basic bottom line of it is that what is really important is about the alien is the whole alien thing is the technology, and that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I even saw the the sentence or the slogan that said, not only the technology, which would so-called give us everything, but the technology to take us there.
Right.
Meaning where they come from.
Yeah.
And then the Earth is obviously being made barren, and then obviously people are going to go like, we need to get off this planet. And you see that in a movie coming out now also of Will Smith called After Earth or something like that. And
Yeah.
so what we're into now. So we've seen that Hollywood has been, people call it predictive programming, but has been very much showing the agenda to the world, and meaning that you would see like movies, and then right after the movie, the real thing, the movie would like actually happen in real life. So what Hollywood is now showing is a kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario, and so one could almost say that we are like somewhat already quite into what the Bible would call the tribulation, the Great Tribulation, which would then so-called end in a apocalyptic situation where, like, you would have a great devastation. And yeah, so they're already projecting what is coming, what is after the so-called apocalypse, like a kind of a event which will make the earth virtually uninhabitable. And then but here's the thing, what most people cannot understand is the whole idea of how are people going to be, if you wish, taken off planet to some satellite on Mars or whatever. And this is what I really wanted to talk about today, because so what they're not portraying is that that they are only portraying one timeline, which would then be this timeline that goes into this apocalypse, and then you have a post-apocalyptic scenario, and then virtually the whole population ends up somewhere else, like on a moon of Saturn, which carries the name of the fallen angels. And what I wanted to explain is that, so I think we do have enough science, enough quantum physics to explain the whole rapture event, because what they're really looking at, what they're really portraying here is what in biblical terms is called the rapture. And what we've been able to put together is that they're using, so the two timelines are actually very much following the very same script, but one is following it in a kind of a twisted, inverted way, and the other one is following the true script. And so the whole point becomes that the essence, we have enough physics, I feel now, to explain what is meant with the rapture, because the people that end up on Titan is actually the people that are raptured on the second timeline, which is what I call the downward spiral. And then you have the other timeline which they are not showing, but which is the timeline of the people that go on to be raptured to the next level upward. Okay, and this is what goes back to the stairway to heaven thing that I always talk about. So there's a stairway going up, but it also goes down. And then a point comes where these two timelines separate, which I call the bifurcation point. But so what is seemingly happening is that we are moving towards a kind of a rapture. And in quantum physics, this would be called, we're going from the particle state to the wave state. But there's also a lower wave state where you will end up when you completely dissociate the opposites, which is the yin and the yang, which I always call the opposite, the female and the masculine energy, which when that is split, you get the particle state. So we are like, at this moment, we're being kept in a particle state, which is a state of duality, which people refer to as the matrix. But we know that in the smallest part of energy, we do find the wave, which is what people refer to as quantum awareness, or Einstein referred to it as the ghost. It's the ghost effects, or the spooky. Yeah, that level energy becomes spooky, and Then he also refers to it as God doesn't play with dice and what have you. But that's the level of the quantum, which is a level where we talk about, Schrodinger talks about superposition, and you get a world there where the telepathic or the paranormal is the normal.
Yeah.
So what is happening when we achieve to break through the matrix, which is to stop that state of dissociation in the self, which is what I call superposition, which we are doing now with the work of the dreams and the shadow work. Then people go into a state of superposition. Superposition is like almost one could say that you're being uploaded to the wave state, into the cloud, in modern terms. And then you have the lower half would then be by going into extreme dissociation, which you're seeing in movies like the one coming out of Will Smith, in which they're saying that fear is a choice, and that's the other extreme where you totally zone out from the opposites, but then not by integrating them. And that also leads to a kind of a rapture to the lower wave state, which also is accompanied with paranormal events, but not of the nature of the one on top. So what is happening is that we're moving towards a shift from the particle state to the wave state. And what stays over in that post-apocalyptic scenario as a barren earth is really what you're seeing there is like the particle state. And then you would get the Titan would then be the lower wave state that people are being raptured up down to. And then you would have the higher wave state, which would then be what people would refer to as moving back to Eden. But by enough people uniting their opposites, reaching to the self with a capital S, they enter this deeper state of energy, which would then be like the first stages of the wave state. And then, so what is really happening is that a point is going to come where what we now call the particle state, which is like what we call reality, is going to become like the non-reality, and the wave, which we know is here, we can prove it in quantum physics, is going to become the shared consensus reality. And that at that point, the two timelines, the one going down and up and the one that is staying in the middle, the barren earth, they will disappear to each other. They will separate from each other. And this is what's happening. And that Titan is not a planet off in deep space. That's a lower dimension. This is why these UFOs, so-called UFOs, they're not coming from another planet. They're coming from another dimension. And that's a lower dimension. And so in quantum physics now, and in depth psychology, we have the language to understand what's happening or what's going to happen. It's a shift from the particle to the wave. And now those people that are doing the work of touching the shadow and that are connecting, that are coming close to the true self, which would then be like the self in superposition, because superposition is the wave, which would then be like the quantum self. They are already in their dreams, in sheer dreams, connecting to this wave state, which is another dimension that is here. And all that's going to happen when enough people connect to that, because what we know that reality is not, there's nothing real about reality in and of itself. What's real of reality is that it's shared.
Well, it's also what is real is that every individual is creating this reality, and the input is not really what you see around you and the whole global society and all the politics and all the military. It's not that. The input is every individual, and what is what you are trying to convey is that politics and this, what you call elite, would want people to remain in a state of split. And in this split mindset, you can rapture people down. And if you can learn how to get into this superposition, you can go move to the other wave, which is higher. And so the input is not really what you're seeing out there. The input is you. You are the value, the variable here, and your mind, and what we are all creating together, and what you see on television and all this fear mongering is just trying to get people in this reality where there is no choice. The choice has been made from what you're calling the lower frequency, these demons, this UFO, this lower dimension, and they want you in their reality, and that reality is based on people that are totally split.
Yes, exactly, and that's a beautiful way of putting it, because yeah, someone asked me the other day. Okay, these aliens are not aliens; they're entities in a lower dimension, and so they asked me, yeah, are they also part of the whole? The one is yes. These are just what we know. If you look at them, if you take a multidimensional map into account of reality, then we're just at a certain frequency, and there are higher frequencies and lower frequencies, and this is a continuum. It's ridiculous to think that this it's only this here where we're at. As a matter of fact, we are locked in a frequency here, and there are forces now that would like to keep us locked here in this level, and split us enough so that we could even be downgraded to another lower frequency. And this is the thing. If we can, the whole thing is that we are being, so if we can keep enough people in a state of splitness, dissociation, then this frequency is kept alive. So this frequency is, as it were, the lower being entities. The entities at a lower frequency. They're just like us, but they're just at a lower frequency. They want to keep us stuck at this frequency because that's the way they keep alive. We know that at those levels there is like it's almost like life is almost not sustained anymore at those levels. This is why the earth is being made barren and is being radiated and all of that, because these beings cannot exist in a earth that is with full-fledged nature. So it serves them to keep us locked in this frequency and going down. It's their survival, but we are being used, as you said, to keep this reality going. Because if the whole planet were to today go from the state of splitness to what I call superposition or containment, which is what you call the touching the shadow, then that frequency would disappear. We would dial into another channel. The reality is really more information like than solid. What we would think solid, like solid and space and time. They're channels or frequencies. So we are just like dialed into a certain frequency here, and then we are being kept there. This is why all these terroristic acts and all of this chaos and mayhem is being perpetuated on us, perpetrated on us, is because they need to keep us in a state of splitness. So fear, when events that are designed to create fear, terrorism, they are actually events to keep people in a state of split, which keeps us locked in this frequency, which the movies portray as the Matrix. And if indeed, in the movie The Matrix, this architect is off planet. So the movies are actually really just showing you that there is a control center that is keeping us, that is off planet, outside of this frequency, that is keeping us locked in this state of incontinence to the shadow. And like someone had a dream last night that just somebody just told me a dream that that is staying with us, and just to show you how this is like all over. And they said that in the dream I was making pancakes, going to make pancakes, but then I handed them over like a tray with this with the items that had to go into the to make the batter. And then she said that in the batter there were like shells, and there were 3 shells, but they were looking for the 4th and they couldn't find it. So the pancake is the circle. So this is all about geometry. Geometry is frequencies. In order to get the circle, which is the pancake, you have to find the 4th. The 4th is the shadow or the unconscious. So whenever the 3 connects to the 4th, then you connect to the circle. And then you go to the frequency of the circle. And when the 3 dissociates from the 4th, which is the feminine and the masculine, then you go to the lower frequency. You see, and that's just today. At breakfast, this dream was told to me, and this is so basically the work now. In these movies are showing you that we are at the end of cycle, where according to the real plan, the purpose of evolution, we know that Wolfgang Pauli wrote extensively about evolution not being the survival of the fittest, but there was a meaning, there was a purpose to it. And he even said that synchronicity was revealing that there is a plan to creation, to evolution. So we are about to take a kind of a leap to another level in our frequency, to go from the particle to the quantum self. This is what is imminent because we are approximating the cycle, the end of cycle, or we're approximating we're returning to the beginning, which would be the Garden of Eden. And so, but at the same time, we can take that leap back to that quantum world, where things are overtly back in its perfect state, or we can be misguided to be raptured downward. But this is so this is the situation, and so it's nothing. This is known. There would be a point where the human being would become so split that they could be hijacked to a lower frequency, but we needed to take that descent in order to become self-conscious. So we are returning now to the tribal, indigenous mind of God, if you wish, where everything is again telepathic and beyond space and time, which is what I call superposition, where you're again in infinite possibilities, but where there's no time and space, but conscious. So we're returning to the tribal, but conscious. So the real timeline goes back to the tribal, to the real Earth, not off planet. What we are experiencing now of this Earth is almost, you can say, the shell of it. We're not really in the real Earth yet. It's deeper. It's right here, but it's at a deeper frequency. So it's almost like saying we're going to go to the deeper layers of the Earth frequencies, while the other timeline is going off planet, because they're indeed going off Earth. But it's not off Earth in terms of going to another planet. It's off Earth to another frequency. But this is indeed, so the real battle is that we are creating this frequency. The human race has, so our minds collectively are what has energy locked into or dialed into a particle state. which is a state of this solidity, of this space and time, which all of new physics is saying is actually the illusion. So we are really at the threshold of realizing that this is not really what is ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is where everything is one, with uniqueness. And the false rapture timeline wants to say everything is one, and then but it's in a uniformity way where there's no more individuality. The true timeline is by finding individuality, which is true self, going into what they call the unos mundos, which is a world of unity and diversity, where we're one but we're still me. If there's oneness with no me, then you have been uploaded to a mainframe, meaning, yeah, then you're not then you're really gone into, because if this already is an intermediate reality that is not really real, according to quantum physics, then that reality would be almost like being like going into a cartoon. You're going into a fully complete cyber reality, which is like, we know that in a cyber reality there's no reality to it. It's just cyber. It's just virtual, a complete virtual reality. And this is what all these movies are showing, that when you go like Total Recall and all of these movies that are showing that how this false timeline is going off planet, they're all going into this kind of Tron. They're all going into a completely virtual world where there's no more nature, where nature is like a complete simulation. And we are seeing glimpses of that now, because the Monsanto food is not real food anymore. We're seeing a significant part of the earth going into a timeline that is really totally fake and virtual, but we're still in a kind of an intermediate zone. And what our collective dreams are giving us is that there is a point where these two timelines are going to let go of each other. So it's as I said, there's no revolution here. It's a revelation. But so if anything, it's trying to wake people up to the false timeline and to be able to get into the true one. It's not about in any way stop fighting in the wrong one. The truth of the matter is that if enough people awaken, they awaken from that reality, and that reality would not even exist anymore if enough people awaken from it, or one could say like wake up out of it. It's like lucidity. Then you would realize that you're in a dream. But it's just as now we've been like locked into this shared dream, and not knowing that we're dreaming, so we're like locked in a dream. A shared dream that has that shared reality, like in the movie Inception. But imagine that you're locked in a shared dream and you don't know you're dreaming. Well, we are in that. We're in a shared dream, but we don't know we're dreaming. And when you connect to the true self, you almost like become lucid within that. And then you realize that this here, what is around us now, this physical body, is really just a dream. And the point will come where we will indeed collectively realize that this is the dream and the wave is the truth, the real reality. And it's not like then the body, what we're getting of the body here is like almost like a black and white version of what we really are. It's not going to be like we're something else. We're just becoming ever more and more real, multidimensionally real wave state, and going deeper into true earth. So that's there's so much to talk about indeed about this, because there's so many aspects. But yes, we are being kept, there is a big vested interest now to keep people in a state of splitness, because that is keeping this particle state
Timeline.
alive.
It's timeline too.
Right, but also that is keeping the under frequency connected to us.
Yeah.
Because what we know, for instance, now in terms of individuals is that when you do the work of connecting the opposites and you can maintain superposition, we know that the under frequencies cannot touch you. So what happens is that by keeping at a low frequency, which in the middle state, the under frequencies, which would then be these so-called aliens, but they're just beings at the lower density, higher density and a lower frequency, it's keeping them in contact with us and with this reality. So when when one individual goes into superposition, it cuts off the link to the lower frequencies. People now in the movies that would be represented as possession. So the world is is really at this moment possessed by lower frequencies. But the same way, if one individual moves to superposition, it's almost like you start to wear the invisibility cloak of Harry Potter. They cannot see you because you're at a higher frequency. The same way, if a critical mass of Earth were to go into superposition, then the lower frequencies would have to would be disconnected from our reality, and they would have to move on. But they know that they are going into extinction, and they're like holding on to us and sucking us dry to keep alive. But if we were to go up to that other frequency, they would not be. We would disconnect from them.
Disconnect the feed.
The feed, and the connection, and now they're keeping. So they're really, and I think the elite, that is the so-called what we would call the elite, but we know now it's not just the elite. We know that there's a controlled opposition that is very, very much so-called exposing the elite, but is part of it. It's just to keep the whole thing is to keep conflict going.
Yeah.
If you keep conflict going, you keep the frequency low.
You get people split.
Yeah, so what these entities are doing is they're just making two sides on the planet fight.
Constantly.
And they do that at a national level, they do it at a global level. So now the so-called fight of the New World Order is just part of the game. There's nothing to fight. What there is to awaken to your other level, which is simply the work of the shadow. And so the fighting of the so-called New World Order is an ingenious idea, which is shown in the movie Oblivion, because this group of rebels is fighting the mainframe, Tet. But that the fight is just the conflict. So wherever these entities, these dense, lower frequency entities enter the picture, what they are going to do is make people fight. So in a family, in an organization, anywhere that you find a lot of fight, a lot of friction, they're there because they feed off of that. That conflict creates a high tension, which is a low frequency, they call it a wavelength, a very low wavelength. But when the opposites connect, meaning lower conflict, then you get a higher frequency. So the conflict is keeping them alive. Alive as in amongst us. And so the human being is doing this. This is the whole idea is this. We collectively determine the reality that we're in. So the only way to mess us up is to use our own consciousness to create the particle state. So if we were to awaken, and no one could stop that, if we really would determine that, no one could stop that. So there is a vested interest to keep us believing that there is this order that is keeping people in prison, and to make everybody feel that we're going towards a police state and a military order and all. And it's all a mind fuck. Sorry for the word. It's all a mind fuck. Because it's a mental game. Because if the individual decides to awaken, nothing can stop that. And you see it in sports. The first thing they do when you go to play a big tournament in tennis is the first thing they do is try to make you afraid. The opponent is going to make you. It's all mental. And it's all to keep people in a state not of fear. This is another part that I wanted to end with. It's not fear. This is the idea of the worst thing to be is afraid. It's not that. Fear is just one pole. It's to keep you in a state of dissociation. It's to keep you in a state, for instance, where you are afraid, but you're going to try to zone out of it. It's not fear. It's to keep you in a state of conflict in your mind, where you have one side that is very afraid and one side that which I would call the bliss out, super yang, super soldier state, which is going to deny the fear. Will Smith in After Earth is a super soldier. He is zoning out of the fear, which is the super yang, which is the solar hero. Okay, and that planet is a survival mode planet, where all these animals are coming to kill him. They're keeping you in a survival mode. If anything, the lower dimension which they are referring to as Titan is just what you would call the lower frequency, which is a world where you are kept in literally in a Hunger Game mode, Hunger Games, which is like what you would call hell, but it's just hell in heaven. You can call it that, but it's just a world where, it already exists, and many people have been zoned out to it. There are many people now on the planet that have already been raptured down to what we call the capstone. The capstone on the pyramid is off planet, which is Tet in the movie, which is the other dimension that is already running the show here. But in that level, we need to use the quantum physics to understand this. At that frequency, the people are already kept in a complete mental dictatorship and in a Hunger Games mode. So yes, your soul is its signal, and when you go out of body, that signal can be uploaded to something else. This is the whole singularity transhumanistic agenda, to let your signal be uploaded to another environment, and then literally you have been abducted out of your body to another dimension, and possibly you cannot ever come back to your body. So you're seeing the whole zombie epidemic in the media is because a significant amount of people have already been uploaded, downloaded, downgraded, and people would go like, yes, but at an event, a point will come where there will be that shift. So now in this particle stage, you have people that are being abducted to a lower dimension, and what you find here is just like this zoned out, empty stare body shell. But then the point will come of that shift where people are going to literally be taken so-called off-planet, but to a lower dimension. And the other timeline is going to be raptured to the wave state, which we would call Eden. And the indigenous people, the real indigenous people, are already living in two worlds. Like us that have been progressing on the true timeline, that have found the true self. They are already in that world, and the part of us is already there too, because we are, and then the point will come where those two worlds are going to coalesce. The two timelines are going to separate, and then you're going to get that scenario that they are portraying, but in the movies, but only of the lower timeline.